Hello, my name is Joannne Sargent, and welcome to Choose Health. This has been such a difficult year for so many people and on so many different levels. One of the things I've been reading about and hearing about are people complaining about the skin, whether it's the mask wearing, stress, or what we've been eating. And that's why today's program is called Eating for Beauty. And I have with me today my special guest, Jen Hunt, who is a holistic nutritionist, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'd like to know more about what is a holistic nutritionist.
A holistic nutritionist mostly means instead of just focusing on eating certain foods and following like a ketogenic diet, instead of just choosing foods, it's also about, are you doing exercise that nurtures you? How are your relationships? Are you sleeping well? Are you getting sunshine? So it's a whole body approach and whole mindfulness.
Makes sense. So in other words, not just focusing on food, but all the things that interact with your body.
Correct.
Awesome. Yeah. That's amazing. And you know, now we're going into the early summer season, so we're transitioning from spring to summer. What are the types of foods, whether it be fruits or vegetables, that you think are healthy for our skin?
This is probably the most important, we have the most opportunity to choose foods that will create beauty. The easiest part is the chlorophyll in green vegetables is very rejuvenating and very hydrating for the skin. And all the vegetables that are coming into season, they have a high water content and fiber. And so anytime we can include fiber and water and nutrients from vegetables, it helps purify and detoxify. So anytime we can assist the body in detoxifying, we greatly help our skin. And the more water we can include, and you can tell, like you see people that you can tell they drink a lot of water, but colorful food and especially green food right now would be really helpful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that one of the things too that we've all struggled with during this pandemic and being more confined to home, and you and I chatted about this a little bit, is the advent of people taking out. Talk to me a little bit about how that has affected us.
What I've seen with people that I've spoken to, there's people that have had the beginning of health conditions that have worsened through the pandemic, whether it's high cholesterol or high blood glucose, going into prediabetes. So the problem with the takeout food is restaurants are trying to create profit. So they purchase oils that are cheap, that they're not necessarily stored correctly. And so they're hydrogenated oils, canola oil, peanut oil. Those oils are very inflammatory. And so anything inflammatory inside the body ages our skin and our organs. So you do the takeout, and it's got the processed oils, but it also has sodium because they want the food to taste good. And then a lot of the chain restaurants, the chemicals they put in the food, they do that so the food tastes good on the table or by the time you get it home 30 minutes later. So you just have to be aware of the food chemicals and the flavorings. Those are not good for our skin.
Interesting, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. So I know that there's a huge industry out there for skincare products that we tend to use to make our skin look better on the outside, but what are some concepts that we should be thinking about relative to food that will make our skin look better from the inside?
There's some really easy choices to make. As far, like for one example, everybody is familiar with an aloe plant and breaking off the leaf and applying it if your skin has a burn. But aloe vera juice is an ultra superfood tonic for the skin. You can buy it in liquid form in a glass jar at any health food store and just drink, even just 3 ounces a day. And it's a miracle worker. It rejuvenates the skin, it's hydrating, it's very cooling. Anything that's cooling, any of those vegetables that are cooling, help detoxify, help the liver, help the pancreas, help the kidneys.
Wow. And so I understand that you're a chef.
I am.
And so this is a sort of a really important thing for you. And I know that when you probably cook for people, you are mindful of some of these concepts and things to consider, I would imagine.
Definitely. I only cook with the really high quality oils and the coconut oils and the olive oils, avocado oil. I stay away from those hydrogenated oils, which is also a beauty secret because there's something called essential omega-3 fatty acids. We want to avoid those, and we want to include, there's something called omega-6. We want to include the omega-6, so that's what I cook with, like the really high quality, fresh herbs, really good oils, that kind of thing.
And I mean, I know that, full disclosure, I've had you cooking for me since September, and sometimes you don't really put it together until I'm really hearing what you're saying. And I've had people comment on my skin, and you know, I sort of have to agree that I think what I'm putting into my body, it probably helps with your skin.
Definitely. And it's not, Americans don't tend to do this, but one thing I like to challenge my nutrition clients to do is before they eat food to sit down, because a lot of us have gotten in the habit of just eating out of cabinets, turning off the video on Zoom and eating snacks. But if you could actually sit down and take a few deep breaths before you eat your food, but then also after you eat your food, notice, how do I feel in this moment? So a lot of times the food that I prepare, I'll ask my clients, how was the food? And they said, I just felt better. So there is a difference.
Right. And I think especially because you're explaining that you're cooking with better ingredients and better things that, you know, again, it just transfers and it just makes you feel better about yourself.
Right.
Right.
And that's the other important thing. If you can challenge yourself to enjoy cooking and enjoy I call it a moving meditation of chopping vegetables. If you can include that even just a couple times a week, but that when you cook from a place of enjoyment and joy and loving, the food's better.
I eat from a place of enjoyment rather than cook, so that's why I have someone like you to help me out. That's great. So you're also saying then some foods help in one's mood.
Oh, definitely. And right now, so because we're transitioning into spring and summer, and transitioning out of the double pandemic, it'd be so helpful to choose tropical foods. Right now, any of the fruits, papaya, plantains, star fruit, dragon fruit, pineapple, because tropical fruits, you take on the properties that they have, and they've been basking in the sun. And so that sun has that warm, vibrant, invigorating energy. So when we include tropical fruits, we take on that energy, and it motivates us. Because we all need to go to a better space emotionally and physically. And that's just a really easy way, like include tropical fruit in your salad at breakfast, cut it up, have it in your car so when you're driving.
So food that has color.
Yes.
How does that differ from foods that don't?
The colors of foods affect us the same way we feel with certain colors, fabrics, or wallpaper, or you walk into a house where the colors blend. You don't know exactly why, but it feels good. And a red chair feels different from soft blue light. So we can choose colors of foods to magnify a certain quality. Like the color red is very grounding. It's a very grounding base, bottom part of the body, which is so helpful now because a lot of us feel like we're sort of in outer space floating. So choosing foods that are red and an intention of grounding is so helpful. I mean, it could be apples, pomegranate, tomatoes, red peppers, and even wearing the color red would be helpful. It could just be red lipstick or a red scarf, red shirt.
It makes you feel good.
Yeah. So it's something, again, we don't often think of, but you can use the color of food to create a certain experience.
So during this past year, you know, we've heard a lot of reports about people gravitating towards comfort food, some of which is alcohol. And we know that, it just certainly creates a state of inflammation and all the havoc that it can cause to our organs with that regard. So clearly you must find it's important when you're cooking and when you're thinking about preparing foods, things that decrease inflammation.
Definitely. That's one of the biggest keys. Because inflammation, there's so many systems in the body that our bodies are already taxed. The genetically modified foods, the processed foods, not enough water, too much soda, the serving sizes, that's already taxing on our body. So including things too frequently, like alcohol and sugar, definitely create inflammation. And then that's where you see the heartburn, the upset stomach, the people develop diverticulitis where the intestines are swollen and inflamed.
Wow. I know so many health conditions are affected by food, look at diabetes and so forth. So I think eating healthier certainly can help to offset some of the long-term effects that it can have on that type of a condition for sure.
Definitely. And it's foods, it's our easiest choice to slow the aging process and slow potential disease in the body. And the wrong choices just accelerate disease, certain things that you're genetically predispositioned to, aging. So it's pretty important.
Right, because when you think about it, eating healthy for beauty, think about what smoking does. You're smoking and it's affecting your lungs, but look what it does to your skin. So I think people underestimate the things that we put in our body, whether it's vaping, smoking, food, how it can have a positive and or negative effect on our skin.
Right. And the one thing they say that makes everything worse, whether it's an illness, a short-term illness or chronic illness or state of being, is stress. And so if we're physically putting something in our body that's stressful, smoking is stressful, the alcohol, sugar, there's foods that we can choose that really help the body reduce stress because they have a high content of B vitamins. So asparagus is an example, artichokes. Mm-hmm. So there's things we can do, even though we notice my life feels very stressful now, we can choose foods that calm, and they're called sedative phytochemicals. We can choose those things.
And I know too, water. Talk to me about how important water is.
It's so important. Every body system relies on it. Like our body is mostly water, and the body's always in a state of detox. And so one of the easiest ways for it to detox is to keep flushing. That's how we rid the body of all the toxins. So it's just really, really important for feeling good and keeping everything replenished.
Right. And if there was one, plant or food out there that you think just is amazing, what would that be?
Cucumbers.
Really?
Cucumber juice, yes. Especially for beauty, because it's so hydrating and it's, again, cooling when you eat cucumbers. And you don't have to juice it, but if you could incorporate it, even if you make potato salad and include cucumbers, or do a cucumber salad with vinegar and onions, they're just so good for the skin and so good for the body.
Wow. So the companies out there that do have the juicing companies, those are worthwhile considering and looking into?
I think so. I always come back to when was it juiced. Of course, they say once the nutrients of a vegetable or fruit start decreasing the minute you cut it. So the ideal situation would be if you could juice yourself. I know sometimes it's not easy to create the mess or clean the juicer, but there's some juice companies that you're drinking the juice within 48 hours of when it was juiced. So that would be ideal. But the juices that have been on the shelf or in a truck for 4 weeks, I'm not certain the nutrient content is there.
Right. So if I were cooking and going to the grocery store, what things, you certainly would want me to do fruits and vegetables and leafy green things. Is there an easy way to come up with recipes? Is there an easy place to find these things for your family?
I think it depends on your personality. I tend to like, there's certain recipe sites that I tend to go to. So whatever those are, some for Pinterest. Some people it's Pinterest. But there's always, you can just Google fast, healthy meals. And I would say, I would challenge everyone to choose something that has ingredients you haven't used yet, like star fruit or some of the tropical fruits that I mentioned. But even some of the vegetables, I know in the wintertime, the artichokes at the grocery store are small and brown and they don't look good. But now they're in season. But we still tend to just keep walking by the artichokes. But if we could choose a few artichokes, you can cook them in an Instapot in 12 minutes. And they're just so good for you.
So it's probably getting out of your comfort zone. It might be something that you've never thought to incorporate into your meal plan, but it's good for you, and just try it.
Yeah.
I think too, because we've been over this past year spending a lot of time at home and together, I know a lot of people were experimenting with cooking, but again, not always thinking of it in a healthier way. More of it was more comfort type foods, but I think it's important to recognize, what you are putting in your body, what effects it can have. Not that you can always feel it, but I think that sometimes, eating quantities as well. People might eat a heavy meal and feel really tired after, but are there foods that you find that give you energy? I
think how I mentioned the asparagus and the artichokes, any of the foods, produce that contain the high amounts of vitamin B, because vitamin B gives energy, and greens, microgreens and sprouts give energy. So those, especially maybe at lunchtime in the middle of the day, when you want to keep your energy levels high, those would be ideal. Right.
I think too, one of the things I've certainly recognized over this past year is it does take time and a little bit more thought to do something that's different than what you're customary to doing. But I know that since you've been preparing meals for me, I feel that I'm not stuffed. I feel just overall better. And again, if people say to me that I look rested and refreshed, I know that it's a combination of things, and certainly getting a good night's sleep, but I know that what I'm eating and putting into my body is equally as important.
Yes. And it's important, I'd love that you recognize that, and it's important to put a thought to it or notice, because then that expands the nourishment.
And I think it takes time to change. I know that certain ways we've been eating, and then when I started working with you, it takes a little while to change or to be introduced to new foods and things that you weren't used to. I'll put something down in front of my husband and he'll say, "What's this?" And I'll say, "Just eat it." It may look different than what he's used to, but then he'll say, "That was really good." He said, "Who's this from?" And I'll say, "It's from Jen." But I think that that's really been helpful, because it allows us to experience foods that we normally wouldn't. You do what's quick, what's easy. It's not always what's healthier for you. So this has got me thinking and eating outside of my comfort zone, if you will.
Right. Which would be so important at this time, as we said, transitioning out of the double pandemic, because we have to make choices and choose different actions that'll move us into a better emotional, mental space and physical space. But it's an active choice to not make the loaf of bread with butter, but choose a vegetable or a fruit and incorporate that, even though you haven't been doing that.
Right, and I think that that's about choosing health and what we need to do, for ourselves or for our family, and it's about making better choices and being introduced to what some of those new choices are, and just being a little bit more adventurous.
Yeah.
With the foods that we eat.
Yeah,
for sure.
And you could just take assessment: how many vegetables a day do I eat? 3, 5. I don't experience a lot of people eating more than 5, but what if you chose 7? And it could be a smoothie, it could be more, it could be berries. Like I said, it could be the tropical fruit. But even if you increase by 2, by the end of the week, you'll have increased by 14, at the end of 7 days.
Sure, and I'm sure it's introducing them to your young children in the family too, so that they grow up as adults and like that food and understand the health benefits of it. The antioxidants alone are amazing.
Yeah, and the antioxidants are a very important part of slowing the aging process.
Like pomegranates and blueberries, would you agree they're supposed to be really good for you?
Yes, they're excellent, yeah.
What about the nut family? You know, what are nuts that are good for you? I know everything in moderation, but...
Really all of the nuts. The important thing, I try to stay away from buying nuts at the big box stores. Nuts need to be stored in a cooler temperature and eaten within a shorter period of time. So you wouldn't want like a huge giant bin of nuts that were stored in a warehouse. But all of the nuts have phytonutrients and those really important healthy omega-6 fatty acids.
Right. Are a nice complement to eating healthy.
Yes.
So now we're entering into, you know, spring and summer. People are going to be more active. My hope is that if during the year some people did be more mindful about eating better, that hopefully now that we're more physically active, they'll just continue some of the good habits that they've learned over the year. And maybe if they haven't, and they understand now that, you know, some of that COVID weight is because we were more sedentary and we were eating comfort foods and things that were just out of a box. But I think now that the weather's getting better, maybe people can start thinking, you know, I just have to take control again over my weight, over my mindfulness, and, you know, incorporating better healthy foods will be so important to getting us either back on track or into a new space of being healthier.
Right. And it's so easy here in New England with all the roadside stands and the farmers markets. It's so fun. Like, go choose your vegetables at the farmers market, make it an outing with your kids. But it feels so good to go grocery shopping outside or in a big open space. We've all spent too much time in the grocery store. A lot of my clients that put on COVID weight, I said, we all had the grocery carts piled. So if you had a craving when you were at home, it likely was in your pantry.
For sure, I know.
But if we can choose the roadside stands, it's just so nourishing. And then it creates that timeline of you chose the food, you're preparing the food, you gave thought to the oil. It's very calming and nurturing.
And, you know, in the last, you know, few minutes that we have, do you find that with the type of cooking that you do and advocate for, that you see less people having allergies to certain foods? Is there any relationship with the way you think about food to people that actually have allergies?
I do notice that, and there's an intention, like one benefit of eating spinach or kale, because it has the leaves and the roughage. One thing that happens when you eat those types of food is it scrapes the inside of our intestines and cleans. There's like a waxy buildup from processed food. So those foods clean and regenerate our digestive tract. So again, like, people don't know exactly why I'm using certain oils or including certain foods, but you'll notice, like, if you can reduce the buildup and reduce the toxic load, you're not responding, you're not having the allergic reactions.
Interesting, yeah, because I know some people who have allergies to foods, and, you know, it's certainly disconcerting, but some people will have an adverse reaction to a food only because they're introducing it, it's new to them, and I say don't give it up just because you're changing your diet, so you may have some issues, but they're temporary. Just allow your body to kind of get used to that.
Yeah, yeah. And some people will complain if they include onions, that it creates a negative effect. But actually, the sulfur in onions are very healing for the digestive tract. So it's killing off the harmful bacteria that creates the discomfort.
Interesting.
So if you feel the discomfort, it's been helpful that you ate the onions.
You hear a little bit about garlic too, so, and the advantages of that.
Yes.
Well, this has been amazing. This is, you know, for me, again, I've been living it for the last, 6-7 months. I thank you so much for joining us today and hopefully giving some people some things to think about. And I think, your name will be on the website if anyone wants to reach out. And thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.